Hey, how's it going? It's Mr. Sliger. Today we're going to be talking about Sophie Germain, one of my favorite mathematicians, and happy numbers. We'll figure out what those two things have to do with each other. Who is Sophie Germain? You might be asking yourself that. Well, she's not Archimedes, but I'm going to tell you a story about Sophie Germain that will kind of tell you a little bit about who she is. So, Sophie Germain has a rich dad, right? She has the benefit of having a family with some wealth. And what does that get her? Well, it gets her a house that has a really extensive library. And in this library, Sophie Germain reads about Archimedes. Now, those of you that don't remember Archimedes, he was a really famous mathematician, one of the old fogies of math, one of the guys that came up with all the stuff you have to study. And Archimedes, one day he had offended some people, like good mathematicians probably always do, and he is working on a math problem, and he's so consumed with solving this math problem, he's working on it like they did back then, in the dirt or in the sand with a stick and doing some calculations. And he's so into solving this math problem, he doesn't realize the soldier with a giant sword behind him that kills him. Well, Sophie Germain reads about this, and she just doesn't understand how somebody could be that consumed by a problem that they wouldn't even notice that going on. So, what does she do? Devotes her life to learning what it was that had Archimedes so intense in his studying that he didn't realize that the guy was coming after him. So, spent her life doing that. Now, unfortunately, Sophie Germain lived back in a time where there were no women allowed in math in the universities. You couldn't go to university and study math if you're a woman. What ended up happening? Well, Sophie Germain befriends a professor at the university who recognizes how smart she is and lets her become a janitor that comes into the school and cleans, during class sometimes after school, but she's there, and they would leave problems for her up on the boards, and she would do the extra work. And so Sophie Germain basically is a janitor at the school because, women aren't allowed there, and does a lot of the coursework and gets really, really smart. If that sounds kind of like a movie to you, it's pretty much the premise behind Good Will Hunting, except, that's Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, and they have bad accents, and it's set in modern day times instead of back when Sophie Germain was doing it. Well, now, after she goes, does this janitor thing for a while, she starts writing to this guy named Gauss. And Gauss and her, he's another really famous mathematician, they write back and forth, and Gauss is like, this person is super smart. Well, what did Sophie do? Since she knows she couldn't get recognized as a man, Sophie wrote under the name of Monsieur Leblanc, which is French for Mr. LeBlanc. And Gauss was so impressed by her that when he found out she was a woman, he's like, you know what, that doesn't matter. And in fact, the university where she had done her studying, Gauss insisted that they give her an honorary degree. And they went back and forth on it, and eventually, hey, you know what, you can have your degree. But about a week before she got the degree, she died. So she got it posthumously. So one of the cool things that Sophie Germain did was she came up with, or studied, I don't know if she invented them, but she studied happy numbers. What are happy numbers, Mr. Sliger? Great question. Let's talk about it. Happy numbers. Here's the official definition. A counting number for which the sum of the squares of the digits eventually ends in 1. Give you a second to embrace that. What does that even mean? Well, let's find out. So the process for finding out whether a number is happy. You take the digits, in this case 1 and 9. Now this is the process you're going to want to pay attention to. 1 plus 9. But we're not adding the digits, we're adding the sum of the squares of the digits. Ooh, we know what that means. What means 1 times 1? Well, that's 1. What's 9 times 9? 81. 1 plus 81? 82. Now we take the sum of those two digits. 8 squared plus 2 squared. 8 times 8 is 64. 2 times 2 is 4. $68. And we just keep repeating that process until we find out whether or not it's going to equal 1. So let's go one more time. 6 squared plus 8 squared. 6 squared. Haven't done that one yet, but 36. Plus 8 times 8 is 64. Which equals 100. Uh-oh. I see something. Sum of the digits guess who's happy? So 19 is a happy number. And I'm done with that one. Now let's try another one. Probably not going to be happy, right? Now, let's look at 11. Seems like it'd be happy, right? It's got a bunch of ones in it. Let's check. 1 squared plus 1 squared. 1 times 1 is 1. 1 times 1 is 1. So we got 1 plus 1 equals 2. Not happy. 2 squared equals 4. Not happy. 4 squared. 16. Also not happy. 1 squared plus 6 squared. 1 plus 36. 37. Farther away from being happy. We're just going to keep repeating this process until you see something interesting. $58, not happy. Ooh, so close. $89, not happy. Now that's interesting, because that equals 20. Well, what do we know about 20? What are the digits? 2 and 0. Are 2 and 0 similar to 0 and 2 if you flip them around? So we're caught in a loop now because we're going to hit 20, and 20 is going to give us 2 squared, 4, 0 squared, 0, 4, and that's going to put us right back here in this loop again. So that loop is going to make us learn that 11's not happy, but it's also going to help us on the next problem, which is what you're going to work on today. How many of the first 100 counting numbers, so from 1 to 100, how many of those are happy numbers? Now, It might seem like a huge task, but I'll give you a clue. When you start through them, you're going to see a pattern, right? Because look, 2's not happy. Well, we know 11's not. 2's not. Well, guess what else isn't? Anything in this loop is not happy. So we've got 2 we get to eliminate, 4 that we get to eliminate, it's not between 1 and 100, but so we get to eliminate all those numbers right away. And guess what else we get to eliminate? 16. What's the transpose of 16? 61. We get to eliminate that right away. And we get to eliminate 73. And so on. So we're going to eliminate a bunch of them right away. But your job today is to go through, what I would do is I would number 1 to 100. And then I would do some work. And I'd start checking to see if they're happy numbers. If they're happy numbers, sweet. But there are 20 of them that you have to find. 20 of the first 100 counting numbers are happy numbers. And that's your assignment today. Good luck.